for humanity.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to share.
All right, here we go.
Hello, nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds. So nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the Yang Gang. Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Woo! Sammy Ravelo is back in the house. Welcome back to the Nerd Zone, Mr. Ravelo. How are you, sir?
Thank you. I'm always glad to be here. Obviously, speaking with you, Tom. You know, this is great.
Dude, I love it. And I mean, obviously, with the craziness that is going on, you as a former police officer have a very unique perspective. I should note, former police officer and a person of color, and someone who lives, in a urban area. So the stuff that's going on, obviously, you probably have a lot of views on it. So let's just start at the top with that. Like, what is your take on what is going on? What do you think is the cause, and what should we do about it?
Okay, that's a lot of questions compact into a small.
I know, man. We just hit this one hard.
Yes,
right
no. And let me tell you, and you got to be able to, obviously, if you're running for Congress, you got to be able to tackle it head on. And that's what we should do as a society. So let me start by saying that I do not condone the actions of the police officers in Minnesota, bar none. All my friends that are police officers that are working still right now as police officers know that this was not seen. I was involved in 18 to 22,000, give or take, arrests in my lifetime, in my career as a police officer. I can tell you with certainty that I never, ever, ever, ever saw a police officer do what those officers did. A police officer sit on somebody's neck and stay there for the time that they stood. I've never seen it, and like I said, we've had people resist us. I've had people fight us. And I've never seen that. Once you cuff that person, even if it's still a little restless, you try to get them into the car, what we call the RMP, and you put them away. So I don't know if they teach it, and I can tell you that's not taught in any law enforcement agency in the United States. I know Minnesota did not teach that, but I'm going to start by that. So we don't condone that. Obviously, there is a lot of focus on the racism and the institutional disparities that exist in the United States, and me as a Afro-Latino man, I can tell you that we've made progress in the United States, but we have ways to go, and there's got to be more inclusion training. I have some ideas on how to improve the relationships between the police and the community. I can speak about the NYPD. They made great progress on that. They've started a neighborhood coordinating program. They can do better. I think what the NYPD is accused of more, not so much racism, but brutality per se. Where there's a lot of heavy-handed policing being done. But we have ways to go. One last thing that I'm going to say about that is that we cannot, just paint all the police officers with that big brush that they're all the same. Obviously we've seen the images of the protesters, and now we also see the images of the looters. We are not in favor of the people looting and destroying property. I will never condone that, especially if you're looting and destroying the property in your own community that is owned by people of color. I can't condone that, and we are going to keep close eye on police officers that don't patrol the streets of their communities the way they should.
Well, first of all, I should stipulate that I think actually you and I, Sammy, agree on those two key facts or two key positions. Like, one, that George Floyd's death was unacceptable. Complete travesty and tragedy, and inexcusable. And the number two, I think we actually both agree, but we might be a little bit in the minority, at least on Twitter with some folks, that looting is inexcusable. To make this interview more interesting, I'm going to actually play devil's advocate.
Okay.
But I want you to know, like, I'm actually pro George Floyd's right to have, been treated fairly, and obviously, totally against the fact that they had that excessive force that was fatal. And I'm also anti-looting, but I'm pro-peaceful protesting, which I think you and I are kind of in that same range. Right. Let me share with you some of the feedback that I've been getting.
Okay, great.
One thing I've seen on social media from the more conservative sides is the argument that, hey, George was a pretty big guy, and he might have been under the influence of some chemicals. And so if you're like a smaller stature policeman, and you're trying to take this guy down, and he's like refusing to go into the car, saying he's claustrophobic. Maybe you hear that a lot, and that you don't know what's going on. So one of the arguments I've heard is like, hey, when someone's like twice your size, like putting your weight on them is not a crazy option, because you don't want them to run around and attack you or other people. What's your take? Because I know you've been in situations where you probably had to arrest people that were bigger than you.
Well, anybody's bigger than me. I'm 5'6", so.
Well, you and me would be a badass team.
Yeah. So that doesn't fly in this face. I'm sorry, for my conservative brothers and friends, who I have a whole bunch of, that are on the conservative side of the spectrum in politics. That doesn't fly in its face. We are not hired to fight one-on-one with anybody. That's not how it goes. So that, just so people understand, the police is not hired to fight, because I get that a lot. Well, why don't we go one-on-one? No, we're not there to do that. We are there to have as many people as necessary to bring a subject, into submission and RMP, and get them out of there. We are taught, me as a supervisor, when I became a sergeant, that was one of my priorities. If the person, after he is cuffed, he keeps on resisting, which we've had a few of those, especially people that are under the influence of angel dust and something like that. You bring people, and you try to hold him down, try to put him in a sitting position. You do not put him upside down. First of all, that's a no-no. And you saw that, what they were doing. He was on his belly, and then 4 guys, or I believe it's 3 guys and 1 guy watching, with their knees on his back. No, I've never seen that. Never. And I tell you, I did 26 years in the NYPD. Never seen that. That was very bizarre. And then the amount of time, because I can see them. I can see us rolling around, and then we ended up, all 3 of us, holding them down. But I can see that for 5 seconds. As to where we could put him somewhere, where he can breathe. But 8 minutes? I don't know. Doesn't fly. So that's my answer to that.
So you don't buy the argument that this guy was a big guy, is big, strong guy, might have been under the influence. This is there were no other options. You think there were other options?
No. Yeah, not that there weren't other options. That doesn't fly. It doesn't. I saw the video. He was fighting. By the way, he was fighting with them. I believe I saw them fighting when he was already handcuffed, or I guess he didn't want to get into the car because a few guys run into the car. That happens all the time. That happens all the time in the NYPD. We used to have it all the time. I remember having guys that we just forced into the car because they don't that they want to go, and they're there in the back of the RMP rolling around and all that stuff. But any damage that he does is probably going to do to himself, and we try to get him either to the hospital or anything like that. But a officer themselves being the cause of that, I've never seen it. It was bizarre to me, to be honest, for sure. And a lot of police officers that are still my friends that are in the force feel the same way. They're not going to come out, obviously, because of the environment that we're in right now. It's an us against them thing now, rather than being peaceful protesting. Because, by the way, I've protested protested peacefully. I was yesterday in a protest, the day before yesterday I protested. I'm going to be in a protest tomorrow. But as long as it's peaceful, because I didn't agree with the way they handle things.
If they did an anonymous survey of current active police officers, do you think most people would agree that what happened to George was inappropriate and unacceptable? Or do you think it's like a 50-50 thing?
I would go on the limb and say it would probably be 95%.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
If they do an anonymous, probably 90% of the police officers that saw that video are probably going to say, you're always going to have that 5%. What do you want us to do? And you're always going to have that person out there. But I'm going to go as far as saying,
really?
Yeah, I'm going to go as far as saying 95% of that incident.
Yeah, that
like
specific incident.
That specific incident. There's other incidents that that could be debated. Right. I'm not saying right. So I don't want anybody thinking that I condone police brutality. I absolutely am against it. But there's other instances. And this incident in particular, you poll any police officer in the country, and the numbers are going to be anywhere somewhere from 90 to 95% saying, "Oh, I don't know. That was bad. That was bad."
Yeah. Now let's talk about the protesting. You mentioned you were out participating in some protests just the other day. Did you feel like the police presence was kind of appropriate? What did you observe in terms of how you and the other protesters were treated?
Oh, no problem. Because the protest that I participated in, it was made clear. And anybody listening that is protesting and let's screw the police. Let's go. And I want everybody to ask themselves this question inside their head: would you want to dissolve the police? No more police anywhere. Ask yourself that question, and then you take it from there. But the protesters made it clear: if you are going to loot, if you are going to do something other than protesting, we don't want you here. Because you're going to take away from the message. Right now, there is a real, need and for major reforms. And if you want to keep it that way, don't take away by breaking cars, breaking in your own community. It just takes away, and now you lose the high moral ground when we do that. And that's why I participated, because I want everybody knowing that just because I was a police officer doesn't mean I co-sign everything that they do. That's not how it is. That's not how it is even within the police department. Believe me, there's a lot of cops that are really fuming at the mouth right now because what happened was bad, and it's bad for them, Yeah. But assaulting police officers, that's not the answer. That's not going to get anything done. If anything, you're taking away from probably providing major reforms, because what's happening is that a police officer is going to die. There were 2 shot in Brooklyn a couple of days ago. But what's going to happen is a couple of police officers are going to die a very violent death. And rather than us talking about the violent death that George Floyd did, you're going to talk about 2 police officers that are trying to keep this community safe. And then now everything that you've protested for is going to go away. And I tell people all the time, be careful, because like I said, if the cops, if they keep using heavy-handed tactics, they're going to lose a lot of the trust that we give them, So it's gonna work itself out. Don't loot, don't break anybody's property, because people are listening right now. We have a good chance of major reforms.
I agree with you. Like I said at the top, I'm very disturbed by the looting. Not only is it sort of, it's just sort of, look, we have laws, we have, there's right and wrong kind of thing. And right. I don't think you should destroy other people's property. And then it makes it even worse that it's like in the local community. Right. Many of these businesses, like, people spend a lot of time trying to build them up, and they may not have all the insurance that you think they have. And
Tom, a very good friend of mine, he lives in one of the poorest neighborhoods in the Bronx where I used to patrol. He called me yesterday because, I still get a lot of phone calls from the people in the neighborhood. And tells me, Sammy, what can I do? They came and destroyed my business, and then they set it on fire. This is a guy that has not opened that business for the last 2.5 months because we were in the epicenter of the pandemic. And now he doesn't have a business to open up. So, he's pretty much going to have to, he told me, Sammy, I've lost everything. And now I'm having a problem making a police report. He just wanted to make a police report to see if the insurance would even honor his insurance because it would happen because of looting. So there's that loophole. So, I mean, this guy he has nothing to do with the police. Had nothing to do with police brutality, burning his business. Had nothing to do with that. So, it's shameful. It's shameful because now, rather than me still talking about what happened to George Floyd, I got to think about, and I want to give you one last thing, Tom. 1968, one of the greatest Americans was killed, Martin Luther King. There were riots all over the United States because of his death, similar to what's happening now. All right. Few months later, Nixon gets elected on the platform of law and order. Yeah. People, if you don't want to see Donald Trump get elected again, let's protest peacefully. Because what's going to happen is he is going to convince Americans that, listen, you don't elect me, these protests are going to be coming into your door. And a lot of suburban people are going to say, you know what? I don't like Trump, but at the very least, he's going to keep me safe. And we all know that's nonsense what Trump is doing, but so I tell people all the time, you keep this up, and you kind of, are going to start making people in the suburbs think, hey, listen, I kind of, don't like what the police is doing, but without them, is this looting going to hit my front door, my front lawn? So I tell people, keep that in mind. And guys, don't take this what I'm saying as I am condoning bad police behavior, because one thing has nothing to do with the other.
Yeah, no, 100%. Let me play devil's advocate with you.
Yes.
Because I was actually in a lot of Twitter debates the last couple of days. Yes. I took some some heat. Yeah, because I was saying, like, dude, everybody should not be defending these looters because they're undermining the credibility of the higher message, and it's making it easy for Fox and Trump to lump everything together.
Yes,
and say, oh, it's just a bunch of opportunists trying to get some free Nikes.
Right.
And so, but one consistent theme I heard was, well, what do you want them to do? You want them to just have a peaceful protest because nothing will change, and that only if you sort of take these extreme measures will we get any attention, and it'll be too easy to ignore if it's just a march. What would you say to that? That, like, hey, this has been happening. This sort of discrimination and racial bias has been with us for decades and decades. Nothing good comes without a good scrap, and if we have to sacrifice some local businesses and burn them down so that we get the country's attention, then so be it.
Okay, I just want to know what kind of violent movement got things done in history, and if you could tell me one, I'd be more than happy, because I'm trying to think right now. I'm trying to think. What violent movement has actually moved the needle? Martin Luther King got arrested numerous times, came back out, and went at it again peacefully. There were dogs and hoses put on him. They came back peacefully. When he could have said, you know what, no more. But he came back peacefully. And, he got it done. It wasn't the only thing, obviously. There was a lot more to be done, but he got it done. If you tell me what violent movement got things done, then I by all means, I will say, okay, I'm going to jump in with you guys and let's break the system. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Let me answer your question.
Yeah.
So, and again.
But that was advocate. I know.
You and I are in agreement. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I know.
So what I heard, I was interviewing Fred the Felon, one of the Yang Gang guys, a few days ago or last week, and he was like, "Hey, look at the Boston Tea Party. You know, that was a violent movement against the redcoats. You know, or you look at the Civil War, that was a hugely violent movement. World War II against Imperial Japan and the Germans. You know, very violent, and you know, many of these great world events happened as a result of violence and not, you know, petitions. What would you say to that?
Okay, so basically, we're not the same. We're talking about social reforms that are much needed, as opposed to the first one is the creation of a new nation. You know, that was Civil War was people planning to break the union up. Obviously, World War is wars between nations, so they don't really necessarily apply to this. You know, what we want is a social revolution. We want reforms, you know, and if you are going to, and then, like I said, it's my opinion, and by the heads that say hi to Felton for me. But if you want changes, I just personally don't think that, you know, if you're going to go and trying to threaten and to burn down the house, that, you know, that you're going to get anything done, you know, because people don't, half of this population, and is not going to go for that. And now when I say half of this population, I'm not just talking about the white folk. We're talking about Latinos don't like violence. And African Americans that don't believe in violence. Hello, Martin Luther King. He did not believe in violence. So if you want to, you know, and that's like, and if violently, if that's how we're going to get what we want, remember, the right, then they're going to see, oh, shoot, the left is getting their way with violence. They love their guns. And they're already all packed up, you know, ready to go. Is that how they're going to start resolving their issues? You know, so just think about that, guys, you know, because what's going to happen is that, you know, 25, 30 years from now, they're going to be the minority. And if we're telling them that, you know, we're going to get what we want a violent way, that's the legacy that we're going to leave their next generation. They're going to try to get their things back violently. So I don't think violence, I believe, and like I said, that's just my opinion. It's not going to get us anywhere. And Martin Luther King taught us that, you know, and that's the lesson that we should, you know, and I think that if he was still with us, he would probably agree with me on this one.
So one of the things that that I've argued with some folks is your similar to your line of thinking around, hey, if we devolve into you know, straight up just anarchy and violence and literally burning places down, we will probably lose in November, because this will activate the crap out of the MAGA vote, and it will only reinforce a lot of negative stereotypes around people of color. And what I've heard people reply to me is, it doesn't matter if Trump or Biden is elected, we're going for a revolution at a much greater scale, and that these problems existed under Bill Clinton and under Obama. So just having, you know, a quote unquote corporate Democrat, whatever, like we want something much bigger. How would you respond to that?
Nonsense. And you know, and if you're on the left, obviously, I hope I don't turn you off, because guys, you know, we are Americans. You know, we've always, and you know, I have two sons, and I tell them all the time, you know, we cannot destroy it. Anarchism is not going to be the solution. It's just not going to be. And I agree with you. And I said it before. You know, we're trying to win the hearts and minds, us, you know, the Yang Gang and the you know, and the people that are running on a UBI, Humanity First platform. If you are a Humanity First Yang Gang Democrat, anarchy is not. I didn't sign up for that. Yang Gang, Humanity First, anarchism. I didn't sign up for that. I don't think that's in the movement. I never read it before I became a Yang Gang, you know, UBI type of Democrat. So I'm a little confused that now all of a sudden we want to burn the house down because we want some reforms that we can get by just voting, you know. And I've spoken to a couple of these protests and says, listen, and I start with saying I'm an NYPD lieutenant, retired, but I am an Afro-Latino first. I was an NYPD lieutenant for 25 years, but I'm an Afro-Latino always. You know, I've been stopped under there's probably suspicion. Obviously, once I identify myself, that level of suspicion probably has gone down. I probably question, hey, why did I get stopped? You know, that wasn't cool, you know. But as a police officer, you tend not to let it go right away, you know. And I understand, and I hear you, and I tell people I hear you. You know, I had a son that's been, you know, part of the abuse of police, you know. But rather than going around and, you know, like I said, burning the house down, I try to reach out to my own department and say, why are we, what can we do to fix this? If you want to be, if anarchism is your solution, obviously, like I said, I didn't sign up for that. We're going to have Donald Trump for 4 more years. That's just a fact, because what happens is that, you know, I can talk to a suburban lady and she will be for, listen, you know, the police is heavy-handed. There should be reforms, which I did, by the way. I'm walking around today. All right. But if somebody comes and tells her, ma'am, those people that are breaking all those businesses in the Bronx, they're going to come here and start breaking into your house. You would think that in the back of her mind, she's like, oh, wait a minute. I'd rather be protected first. You know, so let's be careful, guys. You know, let's be careful. And if anybody that is thinking like this is watching, please, I just tell you, please give us a chance. Give us a chance, because breaking the house down is not the solution. And then the white supremacists, by the way, are watching. All right. Do you think that if they see that the minorities were successful at anarchism, that they're not going to try to do the same thing in a more deadly way? So you know, guys, let's think, please.
What would you do, Sammy, if you got to Congress and you wanted to reduce the likelihood of what happened to George Floyd happen again, like, and really make meaningful change? I've heard some people say, you know what, this is nothing the federal government can do anything about. These are local matters between the mayor and the local police department. DC should just kind of stay out of it. What's your take?
No. You know, and let me tell you, in a way, they're right. You know, there are local matters. Every police department is an independent entity to where they patrol. You know, and I'm going to start. You know, I would say the Justice Department has to try to see what are the hiring practices of these police officers in the major cities, which is where the bulk of the minority community lives. You know, I want to see more transparency in hiring. You know, I don't know if there's a federal law. I'm going to be the first one to tell you, and any elected official in Congress that tells you that they have the magic bullet, they're lying to you. So I just want to put that on record. You know, defunding the police is not the solution. That's not a real solution. Whoever's telling you, I know it's one of those things that appeals at the moment, because right now we're angry. I'm angry, by the way. I'm right now. But defunding the police is not a real solution. That's not going to happen. You know, people are gonna need protection. There are people that prey on other people. It's just been like that forever, and we need that. We need that body that is there to protect the weak. The people that are protecting the weak can't be preying on anybody else. So let's make sure that doesn't happen. But hiring practice is very important. You know, in 2020, there should be a ratio of what the police looks like in comparison with what the community looks like. All right. So I would like to see more police officers of color patrolling the streets. I know in New York City, they're going a long way to making that happen. All right. And I want to make sure that the police gets training in how to de-escalate. You know, those are things that we can require through the Justice Department, and we can put through, we can legislate, you know. But saying that we have no say on that, no, that's you can't just, you know, put your hands up and say, oh yeah, we have nothing to do with this, because that's like the chicken way out, you know. You're being a chicken. You're not facing the problems, and you shouldn't be in Congress.
So what would you So what would the bill look like? Would you say, oh, unless a police department has representation, similar to the local community, that you'll withhold money from them, or
Right,
will you give
right.
more money to the ones that are more representative?
Power of the purse is very, very strong. All right. So if police officers are complying with certain practices, if police departments um, are over, let's say, a certain number of complaints, civilian complaints, and there's that, um, there's a trend. Let's say that NYPD has a trend of having a high percentage of criminal complaints or civilian complaints. Then not only can we withhold certain funds for certain programs, because just defunding the police is not going to work. Then you're going to have a corrupt police department. We don't want that, because it's the nature of the beast. But what we can do is, okay, let's have federal oversight. Let's have federal oversight if they don't reach certain parameters that we can set, certain parameters in hiring, certain parameters in training, certain parameters, and how are they receiving their complaints, how are they investigating their criminal complaints, and so on and so forth. There are things that we still can reform. One thing that I want to make sure that I say, that doesn't get spoken a lot. Police officers, I wouldn't want them, if there is an incident where there is a mental health issue, and we need to start, compiling data, because I know in the community of the Bronx, there was a big mental health issue problem. All right. And you got two police officers that are 23 and 24 years old, really young. All right. They show up and they couldn't even tell the difference between a person that has a mental health issue and a person that's committed a crime and knowingly doing it, because there's that standard. All right. We're having two young police officers have to deal with a mental health issue, that they're not trained for, and now this person with mental health issues, it becomes a criminal because he got arrested for a crime, because he either assaulted the police or because he either, he did something that the police was not prepared to deal with. So, like I said, I don't know if that's the case with George Floyd, but these are the things that, we deal with as a society. You're asking the police officers to take care of everything. You're asking them to be social workers. You're asking them to be, you're asking them to be parents. You have them to be, firefighters. They do everything, and they don't get the training for that. All right. And please, the listeners, all right, because I have a race. I am not here trying to condone everything that the police does. I'm just giving you my perspective as a police officer and some of the issues that we're putting the police officers in that is resulting in our people getting hurt, and dying. And we don't want that. We don't want that. These are real. This is real talk, and obviously I'm there to understand that, there are problems. I got no problems telling the police, you guys screwed up and you guys need to fix your house.
What a sober child has a question asking about community-based oversight. What are your thoughts on how to hold the local police department accountable? I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I think it was actually the mayor of Minneapolis was saying, even if he wanted to, it's not easy to change the police chief. There's all these like union kind of rules and things on what the mayor can do. I would imagine like it would be even harder for the local community. They can say, oh, we think that the police are unfair, but maybe they wouldn't have that much power. Do you have any thoughts on how to make sure the incentives are aligned so that the local police department is motivated to kind of, be accountable and provide, good outcomes for everybody?
Yes, depending on where you live, and this is where, state and local officials obviously, have more power to deal with the police than the federal officials. In New York City, the commissioner works at the pleasure of the mayor. All right, so he could get removed if he's not doing his job, at any moment. I believe there's some type of compensation that comes with it or whatever it is. And other small little cities, I don't know. I know it's more of a budget issue, where we signed a contract with this person and now we have him for 5 years and we have to pay him, but we don't have the money to just fire and put somebody else, because then we're going to have to raise taxes, and they probably can't do that, or they're probably not inclined to do that. That's like side issues. They have to change the way they do business. There is problems in certain police departments. I don't know the answers. I can tell you what the NYPD does. The NYPD can remove their commissioner if he's not doing their job. They have to change their laws, in order for them to be able to comply with that. But I think it's just a general culture. There's a culture that you slowly need to get rid of. The culture of, certain police officers thinking that men of color are a threat. I believe that a police officer that comes from somewhere else, like specifically New York City, police officer comes from somewhere else, and he's never been in the inner city in his entire life, and now he's asked at 22 years old to police it. That's like a culture shock, and what he's learning is from an older police officer, probably same race, that's telling him, wow, these guys are all. And that's when we start getting into trouble, because that's what, these young police officers are doing. And we all know that even in the inner city, me growing up in the Bronx, the majority of the people are just good people. You have your bad bunch, but the majority are people that just like you and me. They want to better themselves. And that's where I think we need to break that culture of us against them. It should be us with them. And I'm interested in sitting down with the police commissioner. I know the police commissioner in the city of Yonkers. After this election, we're going to sit down and we're going to find ways of improving. I am going to volunteer myself to sit down with local youths and teach them how to interact with the police officers, because sometimes the local, because I tell people all the time, we got to look at ourselves. Sometimes the biggest threat to young Latino men are other young Latino men. So we got to talk about it, So, I want to teach them, how to confront police, what's the decorum that you use when they're a police officer, and what are your rights, and what can a police officer do and what can't they do, and hear from another police officer, I think goes a long way.
Absolutely. Well, if we were to follow up on the question of community oversight, let's say when you were walking the beat and working on a particular neighborhood, and the neighborhood felt like either you or your colleagues were, kind of harassing people or not being fair to people, the cynic in me is thinking, well, if a bunch of mothers and parents complain to the police department, the police department would be like, whatever, like nothing would happen. I mean, what's your view? Like, how is there accountability and like a feedback loop between the police officers and the communities that they're there to serve?
Okay, so this is the real. I'm gonna give people the real reality. I was a special operations lieutenant in the 46th precinct, meaning that I was in charge of that. People are complaining in a certain area. You got to make sure that you visit it. You got to find out what the trends are. If people are getting robbed in a certain area, we got to find out who the local kids are. So, and in my precinct and in the area that I patrolled, the majority of the perpetrators and the majority of the victims were all minorities. So this is not a black and white thing. So I don't, I'm going to try to push that out of the way. So one of the things that I was in charge of is finding out where the complaints were coming from. Number one, where are the complaints coming from? Who's complaining? And I'm supposed to reach out to the complainant. So, and go to the community meeting. So I used to go to every community meeting. And one of the things that, you would have, and I hope this answers the question, is you get a lady, church going lady, and she tells you, listen, when we are going to church on Sunday morning, in the corner, there is a bunch of young little kids, smoking marijuana in the corner, not letting the churchgoers through, the parishioners that we have to address that. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about marijuana. It's not like a major crime, but we have to address that. They have a legitimate complaint. And these are people that are going to church. Okay. All right. So now I tell my young officers, listen, you got to go there. And what I would do is I would go there myself. And for the record, so your people know, I spent 26 years in the NYPD, 25, little over 25, 26 years. I never got a civilian complaint. Never. I was involved in over 18 to 22,000 arrests. Never got a civilian complaint. I'm very proud of that because I always treated people with respect. So we go there. And now we got to tell these young kids, and anywhere from 16 to 19 years old, guys, you can't hang here in the corner. First of all, it's an unlawful assembly. That's a crime. You already committed a crime. You guys are being obnoxious and loud. That's disorderly conduct. And if you so now you have you violated 2 statutes of the penal law. The police officer has discretion because these are violations. All right. And these are one of the things that I always want to tell my young audience and my young people to understand that, the police officer already has you committing a penal law violation, but they're not inclined to make the arrest because I already instructed them, don't bring people here for disorderly conduct. And by the way, marijuana, the possession of marijuana is also a 3rd violation. So now we have 3 violations, and now we're still asking you to leave. All right. What happens is that, the normal thing that you and I probably time would do was like, oh, shoot, let's get the hell out of here. But you have some elements that they just want to confront, and this is where now police officers are in a conundrum. Do you leave and see the corner to these kids? All right. And now the parishioners have no hope of ever, having to walk through going to church, in a peaceful way. Or do you make a point and say, guys, I understand you, that's what I would handle it. I understand it, but you guys have to go. You guys have to go, because people have a legitimate complaint. They don't want to come through they don't want to walk to church and go across you guys smoking marijuana. And I'm talking, obviously, this is the inner city. This doesn't apply to every community. So if you don't live in the Bronx, you probably wouldn't understand. But these are some of the things that the police officer says. And guys, I'm telling you that I'm giving you the police officer perspective. Please don't kill me. All right. So these are some of the things that some police officers are faced with. Now, what I did not want my police officers doing is don't escalate this to the point that now this becomes an incident, i.e. like George Floyd, because I really don't know what was the crime that George Floyd committed that ended up, for him to lose his life. If I saw the possibility of this thing escalating, then, it's a decision that you have to make. You probably, sometimes you would have to bring 1 or 2 kids in to make it a point, guys. Don't hang out here. I don't want to. I always release them in a summons because I didn't want to give a criminal record to a young kid that probably is not ready and doesn't understand what he's doing, probably being guided by the wrong person. But these are the reality. I know what hope and reality is, and these are some of the realities that some police officers are faced with every day.
What about the opposite, where instead of the little old ladies going to church calling you saying, hey, we're getting harassed, we can't even walk to our own church, it's the opposite, where the parents of some teenagers are calling you saying, hey, my kid's just trying to walk to the store to buy, gum or milk or whatever. And every time, they're getting pushed around by these policemen that are just like looking for any tic-tac thing to just give them trouble. And it's creating an environment that is inappropriate for our local neighborhood. My kid's not causing any trouble. Like, why do you keep bothering him? Did you ever get those calls?
Yeah, for sure. And for anybody that's watching, I also want to say I worked 2 years in internal affairs, investigating corruption in the police department. So I actually was investigating police officers. A lot of guys stopped talking to me when I was assigned to internal affairs. Yeah, so that was part of, I was an undercover. That's how, if you want to bring me for another show, all the crazy things that I've done in my 25 years, counterterrorism, I was the first responder in 9/11. But to answer your question, yes, and that happened a lot, by the way, during my time in the NYPD, because there was this program called Stop, Question, and Frisk that we, especially the minority police officers, hated. Stop, Question, and Frisk, where they were using, and whoever's here, I tell you, yes, the police department was wrong by doing that, and we were actually harassing young Latino men, young black men, by stopping them and asking them for their information and putting it down. That was a brass using that for enforcement purposes, and that was totally wrong. A bunch of us spoke against it, and they finally did away with it. That's why Michael Bloomberg, yeah, that's why Michael Bloomberg would never get my vote, because although it started with Giuliani, believe it or not, not a fan of Giuliani. I worked. I was a detective, an undercover detective in narcotics when he was the mayor. But he never used Stop, Question, and Frisk as an enforcement tool. But Bloomberg, not only did he use it, he allowed it, and Ray Kelly, and it was very vicious, and it was not right. I was assigned to Federal Enforcement Division. I was a sergeant with the Sergeant Benevolence Association, and I know that we kind of pushed back a lot, and it took years for them to realize, hey, listen, this is bad for business, and it was bad. So I'm glad they did away with it. They should never use stopping people as a tool for enforcement, because it really preyed on a lot of people. And if anybody's listening right now, I agree with you. They should not be done. And I was one of the ones that actually would tell people, give my number. If any of my cops ever do that to you personally, let me know. I personally took measures to either train that officer, and so he doesn't do it again, or then, we would have to remove him from whatever assignment he was doing.
Well, let me ask you, you mentioned that you, in your 2 decades of service as an police officer, didn't have any civilian complaints.
No, zero.
I'm curious, is there any, I hate to make it about money, but is there any financial incentive and reward for that happening? And is the inverse true? If a police officer has maybe top 10% of complaints versus other police officers, do they not get promoted or get asked to leave?
No, because that's when the unions and the law comes in, and discrimination. You can't stop. An officer that has a lot of complaints can probably stop from getting promoted. Yeah, it goes to a board, and they have to decide. I've seen it done. There is that type of police officers can lose whatever assignment they're in. That's very tough, because nobody wants to do that, because sometimes there's the perception that the police officer that gets a lot of complaints is the police officer that's doing his job. That's the mentality in the police department. Yeah, no, he's getting a lot of complaints because he's making a lot of arrests and he's getting this, but that's not necessarily true. Like I said, things are not black and white. Tom can make a lot of arrests and get a lot of complaints and still be doing everything right. It's just happened that, it's just, he's getting complaints for, but Sammy is doing the same thing. He's getting a lot of complaints, but he is being a little extra. With the perpetrators, he's probably doing something that, or arguing with them, and, or in the best case scenario, which is what I used to apply and when I used to write my evaluations, is if Tom and Sammy are doing the same job, working the same hours, bringing the same type of arrest, and Tom has 20 civilian complaints in the last 3 years and Sammy has 0, something is wrong, because you got the same arrest, you're patrolling the same area, you're working the same hours. What is going on? There can't be that much disparity. I'm sorry, it's just not. And I used to look into that very hard when I would take any guy that was to come and work for me in my special operations. High complaints, that's a big red flag for me. I want to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned number of arrests as one of the metrics that police departments look at. How do you account for what if like a neighborhood is just having less crime, and therefore you don't have to arrest as many people? Does that make me look like I'm not performing as well as an officer? Like, do I need to kind of hit some, have some big numbers like, hey, I arrested, N people this month, and that was more than last month?
Yeah, for sure. That's still used as a metric for good police work, and I'm really hoping that the police department gets away from that mentality. That's been a metric since I was a police officer, and it's been a metric since before you were police officers. That's something that the police department has to get away from. I know it started and it got emphasized during the Giuliani years because crime was very bad in the police in the NYPD. There was in 1990, prior to Giuliani taking over, and I'm not sitting here giving credit to Giuliani. The credit goes to the police officers and the community that decided we're not gonna allow criminal activity in our neighborhoods anymore. But there were 2,000 people. There were 2,000 homicides. The old-time low was 2 years ago, where there was only 296. So that was a huge drop. We don't want to go back to that. So there is some type of value in policing effectively, but using arrests as a tool for determining who's a good cop or a bad cop is bad. And I've said it, and I've continued to say it. And I'm going to tell it to the police commissioner next time I have a conversation.
Yeah. It definitely seems like, man is rational and often somewhat motivated by incentive. And if the incentive is for me to have like more arrests means I'm a better cop, then, you could do some unnatural things to try and hit those numbers.
Yeah.
What do you think is the reason why we don't have more police officers from the local community itself? Like, I've heard this argument, and maybe this is not true, but I've heard the argument that in some areas, most or many of the officers patrolling the areas, like, they're not from the community. They might actually drive in from like half an hour away, like in the suburbs, where in their day-to-day they don't even have a lot of experience interacting with folks, and it's easy to kind of then treat the community you're policing as like kind of beneath you or whatever. What do you think we could do to get more local police officers from the local community?
Okay, so I spoke to the commissioner in Yonkers a couple of days ago, and he is struggling to hire more African American officers, particular Latinos. No, more African Americans, and for whatever reason, it's very tough to getting African Americans to join the police department. I don't know if it's just one of the things that they're just not interested. That's not their thing. That's not what they aspire to. But I have ideas on how to do that. Let's start recruiting people. Although they're not necessarily have to be, it would prefer that they're from the community. But if they can't, let's start getting them from the veteran ranks or the neighboring town. But one thing that I say is this: when you are from the community, obviously you understand the needs and the values of the community. It's when you start hiring people that drive half hour away, like you said, an hour away, never been in the district, and never been in the inner city. And now you're asking, they come in at 22, young little kids, 22, 23, and they're in a culture shock. And what they're learning is what the old guard, the way they used to do things in the 70s and the 80s, they're learning, this is why we do it. This is how you do it, kid. The police department in New York, and I'm just talking about New York. I don't know what Minneapolis does. They have some issues that they're going to have to probably break the whole thing down and build it back up, but there is value into hiring the people that understand, the people in their community. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best cops, guys, so but there's value to that. police officers that look like you sometimes matters to the police, to the public. I'm sorry. You know, you when you show up, and me being Dominican and the 4-6 being a majority Dominican community, you know, when I show up, they're all, even though they're all riled up, I speak their language. I understand what makes them tick and what doesn't. So I always thought, and I like to believe, that I had a head start on that because I know where they were coming from, where their frustration is. There are certain things that I can tell them that would calm them down. It didn't work all the time, but you know, it worked, you know. So, and sometimes they're like, okay, you know what? I believe you, Sammy Ravelo, or, you know, I remember, hey, Lieutenant Ravelo, come on, man, you know, but that's all right. You know, it helps. There's a value to that. So it would behoove a lot of police departments to start thinking in those terms. I think this is an opportunity now for each police department to start making reforms that are substantial. Please seize the moment, because right now you don't have to deal with the pushback from either certain groups or pushback from the unions. You know, these are reforms that the whole, and you're gonna get the public behind you. You know, seize the moment. And I tell people all the time, let's seize it. Let's do things that are meaningful, that have credibility.
Sammy, as a former police officer and father, did you say you have sons?
Two
sons, yeah.
Both.
Like, what advice would you give the listeners out there who also have kids on how best to manage their interactions with law enforcement? I personally struggle with even how to think about that, because on the one hand, part of me as a red-blooded American feels like, hey, we have rights. We don't want to get pushed around, and don't be intimidated. On the other hand, like, I don't want to raise kids that are going to look for a fight either and escalate things and get themselves into a lot of trouble, whether it's right or wrong. I don't want them to have a, you know, record and then it'll kind of potentially spiral. What advice do you have for parents when they're talking to their sons and daughters about how to manage interactions with local law enforcement?
Great question. And I'm not going to tell anybody how to talk to their kid about law enforcement. I'm going to tell them what I tell my kids. That way they know that I'm actually talking from the heart, that I wouldn't tell you what I wouldn't tell my own son. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I'm going to answer your kids.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to tell my kids. And I would suggest you do the same. And this is coming from a police lieutenant of 26 years experience. I tell my kids all the time, the police stops you, you stop. Make sure you show your hands, because that's what I do. Make sure that you don't seem like make sure your body language is not in a threatening manner, and the reason why I tell them that is I don't want anything to happen to you. A police officer is hired to keep the public safe and keep himself safe. It's normal that no matter who they approach, at the end of the day, they have to go home. That's their job. So if you conduct yourself in a threatening manner, they're gonna be there to protect and defend themselves, because they have families too, that they love. All right. So that's number one. So I tell them, comply with whatever it is. If you are getting accused of anything, keep your mouth shut, and you ask for an attorney. All right. And if they take you, go peacefully. That's what I tell my kids. What's happening to a lot of Latino young men is that they want to now not only get into a bad interaction, especially, and now not only are they want to escalate certain situations where it shouldn't be, they want the trial to happen right there and there, and it doesn't work that way. The trial is not going to happen, especially if you're going to get arrested because something that whether it's a violation or whether it's a crime, a misdemeanor or a felony. If a felony, you're for sure you're going. Police officers don't have discretion on whether they're going to take you in if you committed a felony. So that's what I tell my kids. comply. The police at the end of the day, are there to help you. And I tell them all the time, if you have a problem, call 911, because that's what happens. Most of the interaction that people have with the police is when there's something bad happening in their life. There is never that interaction with the police when something's going good. You never want an interaction with a cop, and that's one thing that I want to change. And I know the NYPD wants to is trying to do that. But let's start now having activities, community and the police, that it's on a good interaction. We can't just talk to the police anytime we need, we're having either a domestic dispute or somebody robbed me or somebody assaulted me. And now, the police themselves, the only interaction that they're having with the community is when they're meeting people at their worst time. I just got assaulted and here comes two cops that, don't understand what's going on, and now my interaction, they don't even know me on my good day. They met me when I got assaulted, and I'm very irate and angry because something bad happened to me. Somebody robbed me. Come on, go get him. Go get the guy. Get my property back. That type of thing. So there's a lot of learning that we got to do, and we're not there yet. But we got to be. When I say elected official, we got to be part of the solution to these things, not part of the problem, not part of not stoking flames of division. Because at the end of the day, the police is not going anywhere. Any community that says we're going to defund the police, we're going to that they're not really talking. They're not talking in reality, because what's going to happen is that that they're going to give free reign to bad elements in our society, and we all know that there are bad elements in our society that and that there's a purpose for the police department.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I think it would be great to have some former police officers in Congress that can give kind of the perspective that you are, which is, I would argue it's like a very balanced point of view. I know we only have a few minutes left, so I want to get to some audience questions. Caleb has a perception that very few cops are willing to stand up when they see injustice. Like, there's this blue wall of silence and solidarity. What's your take on that?
I've never seen there's nothing such thing as, listen, you just joined the blue wall of science. Nobody ever taught me, say, listen, you can't say, and we're in this together. There's that solidarity that every job has. If you see, baseball players, they all hang out and have this solidarity. Football players, nurses, doctors, whatever trade you are, there's that sense of family, and the police officer are no different, but there's no such thing as if you do something wrong, I'm just going to, if I see you commit a crime, believe me, cops, we hated guys that we thought, and the word we used was shady. Damn, that guy's shady. I don't even like patrolling with him. Maybe, do we call on him and report him? If you don't see anything that he did wrong, there's nothing to report. Now, when it's in the street and you see somebody act heavy-handed, and do you have a responsibility to do something? Yes, you do. And this, I'm going to tell you what I did, Caleb. I would tell, as a sergeant, it's a lot easier because you're a supervisor. I would tell them that's enough. Let's take them in, And I don't think anybody that, I don't think the cops that were probably in that type of frame of mind like to work with me, because their idea of me that I was too strict. And I was too strict, and that's the reason why. You get hired to be a police officer, you have to make sure you do the right thing. But I think that cops sometimes they don't go and report other cops. It's because of retaliation. Probably they probably fear that certain retaliation when you're in the locker room. Oh, this guy's a rat. This guy's this guy's that, and that's one thing that we have to change in the police department for sure.
Yeah, I mean, did you say that that you worked a little bit in internal affairs?
Yeah, that's correct.
So the way Hollywood depicts it is that it's not the most popular kind of department in the precinct. and that it's that it comes across as like, oh, he's not one of us, he's trying to rat us out, he's a Boy Scout, all this kind of thing. What was it like in reality for you in that role?
Well, I was assigned to internal affairs because I had investigative experience. I was a detective in narcotics as an undercover, and I was an investigator in narcotics. So when I got promoted to sergeant, I asked to go back to narcotics. I had a lot of fun, there working there. We took a lot of bad guys out of the street, and the police department, because of my clean record, decided that they wanted that I had to spend my next 2 years in internal affairs. That wasn't an assignment that I asked for, but I was put there because you had to have a particularly clean record in order to work there. If you're going to be investigating police officers, they don't want a corrupt police officer or somebody that could be prone to corruption to be investigating other police officers. I was reluctant to go. Not that I had a choice, once they put you there, you got to go. I wasn't too happy because it's true. Other guys stop talking to you. They don't answer your calls, So because they figure, oh, he's calling me to investigate me, that he's going to arrest me. So I actually ended up stopped calling half of my friends or the perceived friends, but I did my job without malice and prejudice, and I investigated, and if somebody was corrupt and he needed to get arrested, that's. We don't want bad police officers, and that was my role. My role was investigate corruption, and I did it to the best of my ability.
Is there an equivalent of IA for like police brutality, not corruption, but just people who use excessive force, or does that fall under the responsibility of internal affairs?
Depending on the type of force, some of it falls into the CCRB, the Civilian Complaint Review Board, and depending on the level of force, it goes to internal affairs. And there is a unit that investigates levels of force, which they call level 2, that they investigate, force that does not fall under the purview of CCRB, not necessarily internal affairs. Internal affairs pretty much covers corruption and serious misconduct.
Yeah, I wonder if more funding for specific a team that just focuses on appropriate use of force would be useful, or do you think we kind of have the correct systems in place to?
No, it's identifying right now. What are you going to consider that what's excessive or not? Remember, you're asking me a question. I don't want to get in trouble. Remember, some videos that we see, unfortunately, catches the end. Of an altercation, doesn't necessarily catch us what led to that, and so the perceive is, look what the police did. The reason why I say that, because I was, when the police department in New York, they all have body cams now, and that actually has helped a lot with the investigations, because now the police officer is obligated to turn on his body camera and let's see what happens in the whole thing. So if you get a video of Tom recording Sammy on an arrest, and you get the last 15 seconds where Sammy's throwing Tom to the ground and cuffing him, you didn't get those 15 seconds. It actually looks very bad on Sammy that he took Tom, he threw Tom to the ground. He's being over aggressive. Doesn't necessarily show that the initial what started, it was some type of assault. And the police officer, either spitting in the face, actually swung at somebody else. Now, we have to go get him because he just swung at somebody else and broke his head open, but they're showing the last 10, 15 seconds of a police arrest. So what I would do, and I think, that I don't know if the police in Minnesota, I don't know if they had body cams. I think one of them did, but had they had body cameras, obviously we could have seen that altercation between Floyd. Still, I don't see anything that a body cam would have shown me that would have explained to me how did that officer ended up with his knee on Floyd's neck, But I don't think funding is. I think it's identifying what's use of excessive force is.
Yeah. Well, I was just doing research for an upcoming video in a few days about Yang's criminal justice proposals back in the Yang 2020 campaign. One of them was federal funding for body cams for all police officers. And do you think if they were all wearing body cams that Floyd would be around now? Or do you think if a bad cop's or if someone makes a bad sort of use of force decision, you know, it's the heat of the moment, maybe they were scared or whatever, they had bad judgment, the camera is not going to change anything?
The camera has changed a lot of things, you know, changed a lot of things for the police officers. That has actually brought down civilian complaints because, you know, some civilian complaints were actually, you know, bogus. You know, unfortunately, you have your professional agitators who, by the way, if you're a professional agitator, you're listening to this, you're not helping the cause. You know, if you're a professional looter and you think you're helping the George Floyd movement, you're not. You're actually hurting it. But I'm for it, you know, and that's one of the things that I would like. Every single police officer in America should have body cam. What I spoke to the local police department here, and one of the reasons that the body cams are cheap. They could probably get them for free, every police officer here. Problem is maintaining it and maintaining, you know, the software that's going to keep the video that they record. You know, that's very expensive. So that's where, you know, I think the federal government could start helping out and funding on how to keep that software. The body cams itself's not expensive at all. Every police officer can buy a body cam. You and I can buy a body cam for kicks. You know, it's, you know, nothing more than what you get a GoPro, if that. But it's maintaining and putting the software when you download the video. That's very expensive. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think the last question that I wanted to get your input on was someone was asking. Here we go. C. Prouse was asking. You know, Candace Owen. I haven't seen the video, but I think she said, "Hey, Floyd was a bad guy. He was no Boy Scout. He's had a record. He had drugs in his system. You know, and therefore, you know, he's not a martyr." That's I think is Candace Owens' point of view. Do you have a reaction or thoughts on that?
C. Prouse, I'm going to apologize to you, and if anybody from my district is watching, I'm going to apologize to them as well. I have not, and I'm going to make it a point to see it as soon as I close this. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know who Candace Owen is, but having heard what I just heard now, what I'm hearing is that they're putting down George Floyd, or they're trying to trash his character. And what I'm going to say about that is this. That's shameful that somebody would say that. You could be a drug addict. You could be a prostitute. You can be a gay activist. You do not deserve to lose your life at the hands of the police or anybody else. I don't think that, you know, that doesn't change the actions of the police officer. And they can't kill you because, you know, they thought that you had drugs in your system. Come on. I'm sorry. That's disgusting.
Yeah. I would wholeheartedly agree with you on that one. I mean, that is in theory what makes America amazing, is that we have a impartial judicial system, and it's the courts that are supposed to make the determination and provide whatever punishment is appropriate. So yeah, I don't buy this whole argument that someone just because you're not a Boy Scout, maybe you had a record, maybe you did something, maybe you were using counterfeit $20 bill, like, there's not justification for what they did to that guy.
No, you don't deserve to die. And actually, I'm bringing a little tear to my eye because this is not America. That's not the America I signed up for. Not the police department that I thought that I signed up for. So that's disgusting. This is the first time I hear it. You know, my campaign has me very busy. I have not seen the video. I don't know who the person that said it. If it's an African American.
Well, she's kind of famous for being a super conservative African American woman that takes those kinds of positions.
Yeah, well, that explains it then. I'm sorry, that's disgusting, Candace. If you're listening, you got to do something else. That's embarrassing. Just I honestly, I don't know. It's embarrassing. Yeah. I'm beyond words.
Yeah, especially, I mean, well, you and I, our families are families of immigrants, and I mean, my parents fled China and probably you could argue today, the police, law enforcement in China just did whatever the heck they wanted when my parents left.
Right.
And they came here partly because this was a place where every man got treated. Well, the ideal is every man gets treated fairly. And we have an impartial, independent judicial system. We have an impartial, free press. I mean, this is what makes America great. And it's so sad to see the people that they claim they want to make America great, then they are anti-journalism, anti-First Amendment, anti-Fifth Amendment, anti-Eighth Amendment. I mean, I know they like the Second Amendment, but it's like the rest of the Constitution they don't care about.
They don't care. Yeah.
But hopefully, Sammy, you can get there and make some change for us. For those of you who are listening to this guy, and you're like, I like this guy, I want to learn more about him, go to SammyRavelo.com. And how is the campaign going? Are we coming into like game time now?
Yeah.
Where are you?
Okay, so I got an interesting development, and I'm actually gonna need your help. Anybody that is listening. We're 17 days left. There is a debate happening on Tuesday, and they left me out.
These motherfuckers.
Can you say that?
I'm sorry. I got a little emotional. I'm very disappointed in them. But tell us more.
No, I'm going to tell you what happened. What happened is this, that I did not raise enough money for their liking, and they said, okay, we're in our opinion, you're not worthy to campaign because we think that pretty much that's what they told me. In other words, they worded it as if, we're not going to include you in the campaign. There are 4 of us running. They invited 3, and they left me out because of that. I am the only Afro-Latino running in the race, and I am the only person that supports UBI. I believe by the way, we've debated twice before. The last debate, I clearly won, and the person that I believe the media is handpicking was the person that I pretty much showed them that we have the right solutions for our district. So right now I have a petition, and I need to raise some money. If people can come out and please contribute, SammyRavelo.com. We have 17 days left because we cannot be silenced. The media cannot put their thumb on the scale and decide this race because we debated already twice, and there's 1 person less in the race. You're telling me that they can't include me because they don't have time? That doesn't fly on its face. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna prove them, and we're gonna go out there and we're gonna let them know. And we have a petition going on saying, why not Sammy Ravelo, NY1? Because it's unfair. Everybody should be heard, and the only Latino voice in the race should be heard.
So wait, when is the debate? How far out?
It's Tuesday. It's this Tuesday. This Tuesday, and they let me know yesterday night. They sent me an email. It's like a Friday dump, So I stayed up last night drafting a petition. I sent that out to all my friends and said, "Listen, sign the petition," because it's an unfair thing. I believe none of my opponents are for none of Andrew Yang's proposals. I believe that they. The people, they like it. I know that if I raised another 50 grand in this race, we're probably going to win because we're going to make sure that we hit the people. But they want to silence me. And I thought that was never done in America. Everybody had a chance to debate. And, by not including me in the last debate, that doesn't mean that, you guys, I'm not going to win, but you're putting your thumb on the scale. And that's shameful by New York One. So if you're watching, I want everybody to contact New York One and let them know this is not America. That's not how we do things here.
So is there a petition online now?
Yes.
Where can people find the petition?
They can go to my Facebook page, Sammy Ravelo for Congress. They can also go, I have it floating around in Twitter. I am going to put it on my webpage. And I am also, I believe as soon as I'm done, I'm going to have it put on my webpage so people can sign it. And it's also on my LinkedIn account. So, I'm putting it out there to social media. It's floating around. And, by all means, if you give me some 20 minutes, we'll have it on our webpage.
All right, so I see I'm on your Facebook page now. Is it a petition, or you're looking to raise money, or both? Which is it?
Well, I'm looking at both. I'm looking to raise money, obviously, and a petition for us to be put on the race. And if it's not on my Facebook page, I'm calling my.
Here, let's see. I'm on. I'm going to share my screen. So this is you, right?
Yes.
You look a little younger in your avatar. Where's the petition? I don't see it here.
Okay. All right. So
I do see. Hold on. I need your help. So this is the call for financial support, right?
Yes.
I don't see like a change.org kind of thing.
Right,
petition.
So we'll get it on there. And I was just told that it was on. We'll get it on there. We'll get it on there in a couple of minutes for sure.
All right. And then when I see it, I'll retweet it out. And then how much have you raised so far?
Well, the last time we checked, we were over $130,000. Obviously, we had a incumbent right now that he has raised close to $4 million. Oh. We have one of the contenders just got endorsed by AOC, which was shocking. They endorsed him yesterday. He raised $75,000 in one day. That's the handpick from the Justice Democrats. I am not a Justice Democrat. I'm a Yang Gang. And like I said, we have different experiences. Yeah, I'm a military veteran, and I am in former law enforcement. I'm a Yang Gang. I'm a UBI, Humanity First, Democratic Dollars. My opponents, one is paid for by all the corporate lobbyists, and the other one, he is a puppet of the Justice Democrats. Those are Democratic Socialists. I pretty much, like I said, Humanity First. I am more, and one thing that I love about Yang Gang and Andrew Yang is that we don't hate. You just said you just had a conversation with your brother who's MAGA. I didn't see, obviously I am not even close, but we don't stop talking to them.
Yes.
We talk. Let's converse. Let's have a conversation. Let's see, where, and we probably are not going to agree on probably anything, but let's talk. Let's keep talking. Let's keep talking. Can't be that, we can't talk and we're going to go to our corner. And I just got to say this, I don't want anybody on the Democratic Party to agree with me 100%. I don't agree 100% with my significant other. She sometimes drives me crazy, but we still sleep together every night, and that's what I want. That's the type of thinking that I want to, take to Congress. You're never going to make me a pro-life person. I believe in the woman's right to choose. All right. But how can we make abortions rare? Come on, let's talk. Let's make it that not one woman has to get an abortion. Probably it's never going to happen, but taking that power away, the right to choose from a woman, is probably something that I am never going to agree to. But that's what I'm saying. I'm not going to stop talking to you because you don't agree with me. Let's keep the conversation going.
When's the primary? What's the
primary is June 23rd. I'm hoping that anybody that's willing to help making phone calls and reaching out to voters, please let me know. I have a team that can assign you phone calls, and we can reach out to the voters in the district and let them know. Listen, how can we help? I'm happy to say that the Yang Gangs, they reached out to me and gave me like a little program that I can use for free, because they know they believe in universal basic income. That's something that I want to champion as soon as I get to Congress. I believe that we are in an accelerated pace, and the pandemic actually is going to make us go into automatic artificial intelligence quicker, because a lot of these corporations realized, oh shoot, the human factor is that if they get sick, they can't come to work. If I can get a robot to do that job, and a lot of companies are now thinking about accelerating that process. This is something that people are not talking about. And believe me when I tell you, none of my other contenders are thinking about this. That's not what they care about. I am. And I really want to champion this when I get to Congress, because it's going to leave a lot of our people that it's going to leave out to dry. A lot of people are not getting their jobs back, and a lot of people are not thinking about this and talking about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you try to list the top things facing this country, I would say a few of them are the recession and sort of dislocated workers because of long-term trends like automation, but especially now because of the lockdown. And then secondly, obviously, criminal justice reform. Now, what candidate in the New York 16th district is both pro basic income and has experience in law enforcement and has credibility to speak to both sides?
None.
This man right there, Sammy Ravelo. So I can't imagine a better candidate for Congress in your district, given those important issues. And obviously, this is the second time we talked. I've always enjoyed these conversations. Yes. I feel like if there was ever a time where we need Sammy Ravelo's kind of like objective, empathetic, and practical approach, which is very Yang Gang, it's now. So hopefully you get there. And I just noticed that on YouTube for this stream, we have about 26 likes. Okay, we need to boost that, guys. So if we can boost that up to, let's say, get to 30, I think I'm right. I think I might have already donated to you once, but I think I'll donate. I'll donate another $30 if we can get to 30 likes. So anybody watching this right now in the live stream, all you gotta do is click like. It's got 26. If 4 of you click like, then I'm happy to pitch in a little more. Just don't tell my wife, because she I donate to too many Yang Gang.
Oh, I know. It becomes. I'm going to tell you. We were on pace, obviously, to hit our fundraising goals. You know, and it's unfortunate that we had the pandemic, and it's unfortunate that New York One, a publicly traded company, would take that stance. And decide that they are just going to put their thumb on the scale and on a congressional race. I've never seen that. I don't think.
What is this New York One? Who the heck is this organization?
They're a local news channel that people in New York, usually the local community, watch. So they're supposed to be a local, like I said, news channel, and it's all local news. So if you live in the Bronx,
right,
you might get something that happened in the Bronx or in Brooklyn or Manhattan. So a lot of people watch it, and I'm not going to say a lot of people, not that many people watch it, but enough people watch it because they want to keep up with what's happening locally. And that's something that I'm just shocked that they would just decide.
Yeah, no, I'm very disappointed in New York One. If any local advertisers are in Yang Gang and you are thinking of buying ads on New York One, maybe think about, think carefully. And in the meantime, the folks in the live chat are reminding me that we have exceeded the 30 likes and that I need to pony up the money. So
thank you guys. I appreciate that.
Trumper for Yang, he's counting.
Yeah.
He's like, no, it's actually 35. Okay,
Yes.
so I'm going to give 35 because there's 35 likes.
Okay.
Let me go here 1 second. Let's see. Donate once, other amount, and put 35. Let me just refresh, see how many likes. If there's 36, I'll give 36. 1 second. Okay, I think we're at 35. 35 is the right number. Okay,
Awesome,
so
awesome.
35, donate.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, they got me. No, I'm not going to leave a tip. Sorry.
No tips. So we don't need no tips.
Yeah.
And if you can go to the Sammy Ravelo for Congress, the petition is there.
Okay.
So one of my guy running my page was watching.
Okay.
Just sent me a text. He apologized. I said, "Oh, come on."
Yeah. We
What's going on?
let me confirm. Let me trust but verify.
Yes.
So where's the petition?
It should be underneath the pin. As a matter of fact, we should pin that.
Yeah. Oh, look at you in the Navy. Love it. I don't see where your man put it there. Maybe
It should be pinned to the top, right?
Oh, in this little
No,
watch
it's Sammy Ravelo. Are you in the Sammy Ravelo for Congress page?
SammyRavelo.com. Yeah.
No, for Congress. I'm sorry, the Facebook page.
Go to the Facebook page. Hold on a second. Let me go there. But you should put it on your website too.
Yeah, that's what we're waiting. My web designer, he had a little inconvenient. We did it this morning, so we're trying to get it as soon as possible up on the web page.
All right, let's see. This is the Sammy Ravelo for Congress Facebook page. I see the donation post. Here we go. Change.org. All right. I was going to tell you should fire that guy.
Yeah.
Let me.
I love him though. He's a good guy, but a little slow today.
All right. Let me paste this. Oh shit! This link is long. Hold on. I'm going to put this in the chat for everybody else as well. Hold on. Okay, so that's now in everybody's chat, and then I'm going to go to the petition. I'm going to sign because Sammy is Yang Gang. Okay, and pro UBI, pro criminal justice reform.
Yes, for sure.
POC, veteran, and is logical. Sign. There you go. Got another signature. All right. So Sammy, the people in the chat were bugging me. I think Trumper was asking me about reparations. Do you have? I can't find his thing, but do you have an opinion on reparations for people who are descendants of slaves?
That's a great question. I actually spent 2.5 hours talking to a person of direct descendant of the slaves.
Mm-hmm.
There should be some type of compensation. That's just my bottom line. There should be some type of compensation. What that compensation is, Trumper, I apologize. I don't know what it looks like because there's a lot of Black Americans like me, and then my kids, who don't speak, I'm an Afro-Latino. You might as well say my kids are, African American, but they're not really, they're not really like your family that has been here 8 generations and actually built this country to what it is. Your family suffered the pains that many suffered, unlike mine. I want to champion a study to see first what can we compensate, whether it's monetarily or maybe property. I don't know what that's, but I really want to, I know that we're talking about studies. I'm talking about a real study, and let's see who can we decide who gets reparations, who doesn't.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. If you benefited from decades of uncompensated labor and let's say a company had uncompensated labor and that company became huge. The people who work for that company without being compensated would have all kinds of grounds to sue that company for equity ownership in all of the profits.
Right.
So it seems to me like, I don't know what the number is, but clearly you cannot build a country on the backs of involuntary free labor and just not provide compensation. That just seems strange.
Yeah. The reason why I say, and the person probably asking the question is not satisfied with my answer, because usually when I get this question, I want to make sure that I understand. When I say study, because studies, every single member can, we'll fund the study. I want the study to be tied into to whatever it is decided, some type of real reparation, a real something, whether it's 40 acres and a mule, or whether it's money. I know that's the pushback that a lot of people are saying. Yeah, we gave 40 acres and a mule to free slaves. Yeah, but you made it impossible for them to get anything else, and they had to sell that land and then go live somewhere else. So I want to make sure that that's and I also and it is a fair thing. I want to make sure that you are really a descendant of the people that really paid for. I want to make sure that like me, you just get compensated. I my family didn't. My ancestors didn't build this country, so I don't want money coming to me. I want the money to go to the real people that actually suffer the price, sometimes with their life. Yeah. So I want to make sure that happens.
Oh, so now he's totally leaned into this conversation. So I know we said we were wrapping up. This will be the last one.
Okay.
So he was saying, hey, why don't these body cams immediately and instantly upload the footage to a publicly accessible platform? I mean, right now, I feel like, I wonder if people would feel like their privacy is.
No, Trumper, let me tell you, that's a feel good thing that, that's like, acting out of passion because of what happened. But the problem is, Trumper, you got to understand that, if that footage is involved, if there's some type of criminal activity, whether on the part of the person being recorded or on the part of the cop, this is going to hit this is probably going to hit, the courts. There are legalities involved with this, and there's we don't want to stain the pool of possible jurors. There's issues behind it that why you wouldn't release it right away. We can probably try to see if we can expedite that type of process, release it as soon as possible, which I know sometimes in some cities they release footage in order to stop whatever issue is going to start boiling. But just automatically, you can log in and have access to our online. I don't know. That's something that I really have to check. I'm not going to say no, but that's something I have to check, that make sure that everybody's right is protected when we do this.
Great. And Trumper was also saying earlier, he commends you for bothering to talk to the police commissioners, because I think his view is that you can't just, yes, you can protest, but also, talking to the people that are leading these organizations is also a crucial part of the solution.
Yes, Trumper. And I tell people all the time, I'm going to be a person that leads from the front, not from behind. I'm not going to hide. And I'm not just going to go where the political winds go. I'm not a politician. I've never held public office. I'm a veteran, and I'm a police officer, special operations lieutenant. I lead from the front. I'd rather have that conversation and you disagree with me than yes you to death and then do something behind your back. I'm not for that.
You know what, Sammy? I love it, man. You're an honest. You come across as a very honest person. And it would be refreshing to see a little more of that in DC. I wish you the best. And I think, if enough Yang Gang are running for Congress, like some of you guys are going to make it through, and it's going to be awesome. And even if whatever happens, just, having your voice as part of this conversation is already a service. So thank you for doing that. And I know it's a lot of work, and putting yourself out there. So, hopefully you give them hell in DC, and stay safe in the meantime.
Yeah, thank you. And any Yang Gang, if you know anybody in New York that wants to volunteer to my campaign, I can use the help. Please reach out to me, and we can do this. And that would be totally awesome to be a part of the Yang Gang and representing you guys in Congress. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Amen. Goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye, nerds.
All right.